Hello, I'm Sergeant First Class Brent Powell with the 76th Operational Response Command. Today I'm coming to you from the Muscatatuck Urban Training Center, just outside of Butlerville, Indiana. Now, Muscatatuck is where the U.S. Army North hosts its exercise Guardian Response each year. Guardian Response is an exercise set up to test and validate U.S. Army units responding to chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear catastrophes. Let's go find out more about exercise Guardian Response. One of the key units involved in the Guardian Response exercise are Army engineers.
The unit out here right now is the 409th Engineers from Aurora, Colorado. They are part of a major rescue effort that's taking place as part of this exercise. All right, we are simulating that this rubble pile is a collapsed structure in South Carolina, which the overarching scenario for the FTX has as the target area of a terrorist blast. So we not only have a radiation threat, but we have a collapsed structure. So the 409th is an urban search and rescue unit, technically trained, just like their civilian counterparts in FEMA, that are trained to not only deal in a radiological environment, but also to do technical rescue. And technical rescue is what we're doing right now. We have a total of 10 victims trapped in these collapsed structures, all alive, right? And the unit now is going through individual rescue techniques, either breaching and breaking, shoring, drilling holes with all their search equipment, which is compatible with what they have in a FEMA search team, the same guys that worked at 9/11 and worked at the Haitian earthquake and places like that. So the unit's doing very, very well. You will see them continually monitor for radiation, right? So they have a double aspect. They not only have to worry about the technical rescue portion, they have to worry about the radiation threat to themselves and the threat to the victims. So they have dual threats simultaneously. The collapsed structure is always a threat. So there's a lot of safety variations they have to go through to properly get themselves close enough to start conducting a technical rescue. They have commercial off-the-shelf equipment that allows them to cut, breach, burn with acetylene or whatever it takes to get the victim out. Right? They can lift, they can move. They have the ability to use mechanical advantage rope systems if a hole is encountered, where we can lower a rescuer into the hole, package the patient, and the two of them are lifted out. And as you can tell, it's very time consuming, and there is a degree of danger, and that's why we have so many safeties here. What's important, because this unit, is on mission for this mission for 24 months, and they are on standby if the Department of Defense is called for by civilian authorities to reinforce civilian authorities in a real world disaster. So this is not a training exercise that we'll never see this again. On the worst day, they will be called.
In addition to the engineers, another key unit being evaluated in Guardian Response are the soldiers from chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear, or CBRN units, who are responsible for chemical decontamination.
What you see out here is mass casualty decon. So early this morning we established what the double background hot zone was. The MCD, as you see out here, was established from that line, and right now we're processing non-ambulatory and ambulatory casualties. We have role players out here that are replicating that from this disaster. What we are actually in right now by scenario is South Carolina, a major city, and we're replicating that here at Muscatatuck. Right now the unit is being evaluated, which adds a little bit more to this training exercise, in that they didn't get their external evaluation done prior, and we're doing that simultaneously with this exercise. So the standards of this evaluation are real critical. This morning they passed the first phase, which is out with site occupation plan. They have 2.5 hours to set up, and the unit executed that. And right now they have to maintain within the non-ambulatory line and ambulatory line 20/40 standards. That's 20 for non-ambulatory and 40 patients per hour for ambulatory. The system that we use inside has a lot of technical stuff when it comes to cutting out the patients and then deconning the patients and then monitoring the patients and then getting them through medical. On the ambulatory side, you'll see a lot of the survivors out here that have children or have loved ones. We keep them together and they process through the tent. So it's not a complicated system. It's more or less undress, shower, monitor, redress, seek medical care. And then when they get on the backside, they normally go out by ambulance. If they need an air evac, we send them out by air, or we put them in a holding area that provides life support until we can get them medevac to the Ville. So right now we've treated over 180 ambulatory patients and non-ambulatory around 2022. And we've been operational, actually seeing casualties. Now we're in our 3rd hour. So it takes a little bit of time. There is NFPA standards, the National Firefighters Standards that we go by, that we have to make sure everything's right because we are dealing with a domestic environment. So there's certain rules we have to go by. In this case, we're doing both external evaluation and a validation, but it validates the forces because of the NORTHCOM mission under Army North. We have to make sure that we get trained and ready forces. Part of the technical aspect of it, which is what we do, is ensure that they have, the soldiers have all the technical skills needed to conduct this mission. Once they come on mission 1 June, they can be called out at any time for a catastrophic event. That's if a 10 or 15K small device nukes goes off in a major city. We know that the first responders will be overwhelmed in a certain amount of time. So our job is to make sure that both the Guard and Reserve forces and the active duty are prepared and trained to come in and provide that assistance. With our top line thing is to save lives and mitigate suffering.
Guardian Response really evaluates and tests the capabilities of 3 specific types of Army units: engineers, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear companies, and medical units.
So when the patients come through at the casualty collection point, there's an initial triage that happens. We call it a rapid triage. The patients are processed through the decontamination line, and then there's another triage that occurs there, a more proficient and true triage that happens. From there, the patients go through either a minimal and delayed care tent, or they go through an immediate care tent. In the minimal delayed, we would consider those our walking wounded, scrapes, minor burns, some lacerations. Towards the immediate section, those are our real life-saving capabilities that occur in that tent. Our life-saving interventions include IV therapy, intubation, respiratory support, also suctioning. From there, patients are sent through to a patient hold area, and then patient tracking occurs, and they're sent out into the community for evacuation. You know, you can't run this just on medics. So there's providers, there's physician's assistants, there's doctors. We have all the support personnel that you could want. There's medical supply. There's biomedical equipment personnel here. There's also ancillary services, although those aren't offered here, but those are your real manpower, your workers who are physically moving these patients through to get their care. They can treat a variety, anything from trauma to some minor medical scenarios that would be happening, because this unit would come in after the 96-hour mark in a disaster. So you would have personnel out in the community without their daily medications that they would take, and without that kind of support, maybe without, you know, food and water. So we can do some really basic medical management piece, not a whole lot, but really anything. This is probably the most realistic training that I have had the pleasure of experiencing. I'm on the current Cree Alpha mission year, and this experience that we got here at MUTC was probably the biggest eye-opening experience that we would be caring for our brothers and sisters on America's worst day.
So now we know a little bit more about what Guardian Response is. Let's talk a minute about Army North's Exercise Vibrant Response, which runs concurrently with Exercise Guardian Response. Now, Exercise Vibrant Response takes place here at Camp Williams, Utah this year, where the task force headquarters is tested on their staff exercises. Let's go find out a little bit more about Exercise Vibrant Response.
Vibrant Response is an exercise held every year that validates those headquarters that are basically trained and maintained to support the a CBRN response in the United States. And Task Force 76 is one of those headquarters. It really helps to our staff to gel and work through the processes that are fairly unique because in this complex environment that is defense support of civil authorities. The common scenario is basically the Task Force 76 and our other partners like Joint Task Force Civil Support in the Korean Civilian Response Enterprise are built for is the 10 to 20 kiloton nuclear device scenario in basically your favorite U.S. city every year. So in that response, again, there are a lot of unique challenges, and there's also the unique characteristic of defense support of civil authorities where we in the military are in support of our local, state, and federal partners, usually most specifically FEMA, to bring support to the citizens of whatever that city happens to be.
So right now I'm standing inside the Task Force 76 Tactical Operations Center, or the TOC as it's commonly referred to. This is really the heartbeat of Vibrant Response. Inside this TOC we have a variety of soldiers doing a variety of different things. We have Task Force Aviation, Task Force Sustainment, Task Force Operations, and all these soldiers are busy in here doing coordination, staff processes if you will, to make sure that things are happening out there to respond to the disaster.
We operate in different cells here, and we talk about current operations. These guys track our operations 24 hours, and then we have what we call our future operations, and those guys track operations 48 to 72. And then we have liaisons from all of our task force that help us communicate directly to our units and make sure information is flattened. And then we have representatives from our staff sections, from our G1 and G2, G3, all the rest of the staff sections, to make sure that all of our staff is synced and working in the same direction. We make sure that while we're inside this TOC, that all missions are tracked, all mission assignment tasking orders, and any support to our local, state, and federal government that we can provide is tracked, and all of our units are missioned correctly, and we ensure that they're supported to accomplish those missions.
The biggest thing for Exercise Vibrant Response is just, again, that we prepared to deal with the challenges of America's worst day, and that by us practicing, we can be more responsive, more efficient, more effective, and to be able to support whatever citizens are impacted.
Reporting from the Muscatatuck Urban Training Center, I'm Sergeant First Class Brent Powell.